In the hills of West Virginia, 1883, townsfolk whisper of a boy who should not have survived. He healed from wounds no doctor could explain, endured beatings that left no scars, and carried a silence that frightened even grown men. To some, he was a miracle. To others, he was something to fear. But the truth was far darker. His very existence exposed a system that saw black children as less than human, and when his difference could no longer be hidden, the town made a choice that would haunt history forever. What happened to the boys science could not explain. In the cold country of West Virginia, the year 1883 brought both promise and cruelty. Railroads carved paths through the mountains, and industry promised wealth for a select few. But beneath the shadow of progress, children like Isaiah, born to black parents struggling in poverty, were reminders of the country's unfinished war with itself. Isaiah was small, quiet, and often overlooked, but he carried a resilience that set him apart. By the age of 10, he had survived accidents that should have killed him: a minecart crash, a fever that took 3 other children, and even a fall from a trestle bridge that left him walking away unbroken. His mother called it God's hand. Neighbors whispered it was witchcraft. Despite the rumors, Isaiah tried to live as any boy would, running barefoot through dusty roads, sneaking cornbread from the kitchen, and dreaming of a life far from the mines. But in a town where black families were seen as tools for labor rather than people with futures, his resilience was not admired. It was feared. Doctors came and went, some intrigued by his inexplicable survival, others dismissing him as a curiosity not worth studying. The town kept no official records of him. No school enrollment, no church baptism, not even a birth certificate. To the authorities, Isaiah did not exist. And yet, everyone knew his name. The boy who could not be broken became both a fascination and a threat. The whispers grew louder. If science could not explain him, then perhaps he did not belong to this world at all. And in 1883, being seen as different was often more dangerous than any illness or wound. The whispers turned to stares, and the stares turned to action. It began with the other children. Some envied Isaiah, daring him to jump from fences or stand in the path of wagons, testing the limits of his strange resilience. Others feared him, spreading cruel stories that he was cursed, that his survival came to the cost of other children's lives. When a white child fell ill and died after playing near him, the town's suspicions ignited like coal catching fire. Adults took notice. The mine overseer, already resentful of Isaiah's father for demanding safer conditions, seized the moment. He muttered to townsfolk that Isaiah was no ordinary boy, that his unnatural strength could only mean trouble. In a community where black labor was exploited and disposable, Isaiah's strangeness was twisted into proof of danger. Soon, the doctors returned, not to heal, but to study. They brought crude instruments, measuring his pulse, his breath, his skin. One even tried to cut him, only to find the wound closing faster than expected. Instead of seeing him as a child, they labeled him an aberration, a body to prod, not a soul to protect. Isaiah's mother begged him to leave him alone, clutching her son with a fear that only mothers know. But her pleas were drowned out by the collective unease of a town that could not accept a black child who defied their understanding of life and death. The breaking point came during a church service. Isaiah, forced by his mother to attend, sat quietly as the preacher thundered about demons walking in human form. When Isaiah shifted in his seat, eyes downcast, a woman screamed that she saw the devil in him. Panic spread through the congregation. Some shouted that he should be cast out. Others demanded he be handed to men of science for proper containment. That night, his family found rocks hurled at their small cabin, threats painted on the door. The message was clear. Isaiah did not belong. The town that should have protected a child instead prepared to erase him. And Isaiah, who had survived everything nature had thrown at him, now faced something far more dangerous: human hatred. One cold evening, lanterns lit the path outside Isaiah's home. A mob gathered, faces half hidden by scarves, eyes burning with a mixture of fear and righteousness. They dragged him from his bed while his mother screamed, her voice silenced by the barrel of a rifle pressed against her cheek. The men argued whether to kill him outright or deliver him to the doctors. Both options carried the same meaning. Isaiah's life as a child was over, but the boy did not cry. He stood in the flickering light, small and trembling, yet unbroken. They bound his hands, tied his ankles, and struck him across the back. He fell but rose again. They struck harder, but he rose once more. The more he endured, the more the mob's fear turned to rage. They carried him to the edge of the mine shaft, a yawning black mouth that had swallowed many men. Shouts rose in the cold night air. If he survives this, he isn't one of us. Isaiah was pushed into the darkness. The fall was long, the silence longer. Some swore they heard no impact, only the echo of wind. Others claimed they heard his voice whispering through the rocks. The mob dispersed, satisfied that their fear had been silenced. But the shaft was never sealed. Miners reported strange sounds in the tunnel for years. Footsteps where no man walked, the sound of a child's breath carried through stone. And every now and then in the quiet hours, someone swore they saw a boy's shadow just beyond the lamplight. Isaiah was gone but not forgotten. He had become legend, a reminder of how fear of difference could erase a child more effectively than any disease. Isaiah's name never appeared in official records. No newspaper printed his story. No doctor admitted what they had seen. History buried him the way the town had buried its guilt, in silence. But silence is never permanent. The whispers of his existence survived in oral histories passed down through families. Stories told in hushed tones about the boy who defied both science and cruelty. For some, he was a ghost haunting the mines. For others, he was proof that black children carried resilience beyond comprehension. Resilience the world refused to honor. Isaiah's story forces us to confront a brutal truth. Injustice is not always written in laws or headlines. Sometimes it lives in the decisions of ordinary people who choose fear over compassion. The boy beyond science was not destroyed by nature, nor by sickness, but by a society that refused to see his humanity. And that truth lingers. Even today, how often are children of color treated as threats rather than lives to be cherished? How many Isaiahs are erased before their stories can be told? The strange case of Isaiah is not just a haunting from 1883. It is a mirror held to our present, asking us whether we will keep erasing the children who don't fit our narrow definitions, or whether we will finally protect them. Because science may fail to explain resilience, but humanity fails when it refuses to protect it.